So hello, this is the fourth day of the 53rd IATEFL conference, and I'm here with a lady with whom we share multiple passions, but I keep forgetting her surname. So ladies and gentlemen, Fiona Mauchline today with us, welcome. Fiona and I are on the same committee. Obviously we're volunteering for IATEFL, but I know you have been around for quite a long time at IATEFL.
Yes.
So the first thing I would like to ask is, how has IATEFL changed in the time when you have been a member?
Well, obviously it's changed a lot, and I have to say I don't actually used to come to the conferences because I lived somewhere I found it difficult to come to, and time-wise I couldn't come. But I think in terms of what it does for the membership, it actually hasn't changed much because it's always done a lot, if you see what I mean. The magazines and the newspapers, there was a lot more paper in the newspapers, newsletters. There was a lot more paper in the past.
So and a lot more to carry in the past.
Exactly, yeah, and you had to have your box files with your, all your journals in there. But in that sense, I don't think it actually has changed so much because it's always been very giving and producing lots of information.
And also dynamic in the way it helps to pick trends and tendencies before they become trends and tendencies.
Yeah, this is it. So it used to be the go-to place to read, find out, what was going on in ELT, for me at least, where I was, particularly I was in the Canaries, because that was like a long way away from any of the major conferences, was to read my IATEFL magazines.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about your current passions and what you're doing as a trainer right now?
As a trainer, I'm doing still a lot of stuff on secondary. My huge passion is, neuroscience, where we are in science at the moment, and what that is or should be telling us about how to teach. Because we're beginning to know, the human race, are beginning to find out a lot more about how people learn and how the brain functions, and thanks to the use of MRI scans, what brain activity is going on, which parts of the brain. Exactly, when we're processing language, when we're learning, when we're forming memories. And what I'm really interested in is sort of applying that knowledge to teaching, like multilingual people, how the brains work, people like you, bilingual, whatever.
Bilingual, but not multilingual.
You are. Well, from the brain's point of view, 2 languages and more is multilingual. So, but yeah, I think it's like how to apply that, how to inform classroom practice, and in my case particularly related to the adolescent, because it turns out that the brain is adolescent until we're 27, which accounts for most of my students and a large number of my trainee teachers. So yeah, that's kind of my big thing at the moment.
And that touches on one of my interests. One of the things that I keep struggling with is student engagement.
Yeah.
So how do you think your work and your research are going to translate into actual classroom practice? Is it the teacher education that needs to change, the mentality of the students, the material and the mentality of the materials writers, or everybody?
I think it's largely, you can't really change the mentality of the students because their brains, because we're all learning, brains, or where they are on the cognitive development scale, are going to influence. I think it's the teachers and teacher trainers and material writers and also publishers need to kind of get up to date on what you can realistically expect a teenage brain or a young adult brain to cope with. So things like, the grammar, the part of your brain that processes grammar efficiently is one of the last parts to develop. So
what does it do to our young learners when we teach grammar then?
Just kind of looks like fizz, it's there. If they get it, you're lucky. You can't particularly ask, or some can, but you can't really realistically ask them always to process grammar rules logically. What you can do is get them to learn a lot of vocabulary and help them express themselves, because that part of the brain is the part of the brain that the teenagers are really developing and beginning to use better and more efficiently. So it's the expression part the creative part, the emotional part, the limbic system and the amygdala. That's the bit that's really kind of booming, shall we say, in the teen years. So the real thing is, we should be doing is helping them access their creativity, their imagination, their or their desire to express themselves.
And this makes learning so much more fun. I find that in my own learning, when I actually use things, when I can understand what the things that I have learned do for me in my reality, I can immediately relate to them. Otherwise, it's white noise.
Yeah, I mean, fun's one of those words that you got to be a bit
It
careful
changes
with,
with age, yeah.
But
I
you
know.
do have to be. I mean, there's a movement at the moment that says, we don't need so much fun. We need to be, I don't know, high demand or serious or whatever. You do actually need engagement, and you do need to promote positive emotions in the classroom. Whether you call that fun or interest or curiosity or problem solving.
Or actually engagement, being there, thinking, and actually doing something. I still feel that we are so behind the times when there are thousands of classrooms around the globe where learning takes place in classrooms with desks in a row, a teacher speaking, students just daydreaming and not actually doing anything, which is like putting the brain to sleep.
No, it is, because the memories are largely formed by the parts of the brains that are also triggered or stimulated by beauty, by the senses, by things like maps, problems, and those are the parts of the brain that we as teachers should be trying to stimulate. So, beauty, you're not going to trigger that part of the brain with a grammar box, let's face it. So I think that should be informing both our teaching and materials creation. And I think that's where some course books are beginning to move in that direction with the images, the beautiful images. But then, of course, you've got issues like how we process colour, colourblind people, sight-impaired people, and so on. So you access it via the other senses as well.
And the senses are so important in everything that we do, even in the formation of memories. As I understand, you had your workshop yesterday.
Tuesday
Tuesday that
morning.
was the first day of the conference.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? How did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it. It was in a slightly unusual room. It was in part of the auditorium, so that was quite exciting. It went quite well. I mean, I was talking about teaching vocabulary to people who have perhaps physical, it's not exactly learning difficulties, but sight impaired people, the hard of hearing, colourblind, and we would have looked at dyslexic students, but unfortunately there was a computer breakdown, so we didn't quite manage that bit. But
and these are all issues, might I say, apart from dyslexia. I have had no memory of actually attending a workshop where I was trained with colorblind students. Never.
No.
So this is a new thing that is coming in.
Well, it comes from my side of things. It comes from my learning about the brain and how it works, and then that kind of learning how the eyes work, and then the fact that 1 in 12 male people, is colorblind.
Which explains why they cannot match their clothes.
No. But it also
Obviously not.
A very high percentage of your students are potentially colorblind, but they're not going to tell you that at the beginning of the year. They're not going to walk in and say, "Hi, my name's Pepe, I'm colorblind." So, when you're preparing your materials, you should take that into account. Same with sight impairment. I'm not talking about completely blind, but some of your students may be having sight problems. They may be at the beginning of a sight problem. They won't want to talk about it. They won't want to, confess. But equally, they might feel challenged by the materials. Same with hearing issues. In a classroom particularly at the beginning of the year, where you don't know everybody, you're not going to announce that you're partially deaf. But there are techniques. If you know how the head, how the brain, how the ears, etc. work, what language means to people who are deaf or partially deaf, how they process it, how they see it and hear it or not hear it. You can adapt your teaching so that everybody in the room can learn. You can use techniques that will play on the strengths of these people who have these conditions, but will also benefit the sort of, should we say, people with normally working hearing.
And I like the idea of playing on the strengths.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Fiona, you know that tomorrow the closing plenary is going to be devoted on the future trends in ELT. So where do you see us going? Where are we heading?
I don't know where we're heading, but I know where I hope we're heading. I'm involved in EVE. I'm one of the co-founders of a thing called EVE, which is sort of promoting parity, diversity. So obviously that's an area I hope improves.
And to remind our audience, we had Sue Leather
yes, exactly.
interviewed
She's
on Tuesday.
She's the other co-founder. She and I are the co-founders. I think ELT is actually quite good on the diversity front, but it still could be a lot better, particularly considering who the teachers are, who are the teachers here below us today, where they're from, where they, we've got all colours, we've got all ages, we've got all sexualities, we've got all origins, etc. Roles, a whole lot, and I think that needs to be reflected more in materials. So hopefully that's one direction ELT will move in.
And I think this has been stressed with the plenary yesterday, and a lot of sessions on how to make materials reflect the actual society we are living in.
I think one thing that I really hope happens in ELT, as a planet, we are more informed nowadays. We can be better informed, and I think that should be the future of ELT. I think everything we do has no excuse for not being informed, for sort of resting on our laurels and doing what we've always done. No, we've got information about neuroscience, we've got information about the harmful effects of different methodologies or the internet or whatever, positive effects of, and I think we should be...
And play on our strengths.
Exactly.
So accentuate the positive and try to limit the negative.
And it's predictions like there would be no more course books. I don't think that's ever going to happen. There will be course books, but I think they'll be better informed. I think we will be better informed.
The lady is a river, but we have to stop because my cameraman is waving at me. So with Fiona Mauchline, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And slightly less rainy weather right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, and stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Bye.
Bye.